Attendance. I have apologies from Councillor Wharehinga and Councillor McLean. No one sued from Councillor Dunn? No? Okay, so just those two at this stage. Moved by Councillor Burdett, seconded by Councillor Dowsing. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Any declarations of interest? All right, we'll go on to the confirmation of non-confidential minutes. Moved by Councillor Burdett, seconded by Councillor Foster. Matters arising?
I mentioned about the I'd like to mention about the museum, but it's on the action sheet, so I'll catch it up then with the museum roof. If possible.
Oh, if there's nothing else from there, we'll go on to the action sheet. Any other before we do? Okay, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Okay. Oh, okay. So just Heather's just noted that Councillor Wharehinga is away on council business, so it's a leave of absence rather than an apology. So, on the action sheet, Councillor Foster.
Yeah, I'd just like to get an update of the maintenance on the roof and where we are at the moment. Has there been any progress? I mean, for the weather tightening of the roof?
Yes, there has been some progress. So from the last meeting, we talked about the change of approach we were taking on making it a project around water tightness rather than a roof replacement. And on Monday, we're meeting with museum staff to work out the exact plan to progress through the building so it doesn't interfere with their day-to-day workings. And then the work will start.
And when there's a heavy rain event, I believe that our staff have to be contacted before any work can be done on it. And I'm just hearing that there's been a bit of a communication problem when it rains heavily and they need someone of our staff over there to address it and to see where the water is actually inundating. Our staff are always busy on some other call-outs. That doesn't seem to be a priority. But
not aware of that.
Not aware of that. Okay. All right, no worries. I'm sure that would have come up if it was, yeah. Okay, thank you.
When we discussed this, Andrew, we were going to have the Youth Council here, but this is the second time we've failed to get them here, so what's happening there?
So we did expect an update from the relevant officer around the Youth Council today, but that officer can't be here this morning. I apologise for that, but I expect that we will have an update at the next meeting.
Okay, and this artwork's from the previous council chamber. That can probably come off there now, can it?
Yep, that's correct.
Are you referring to the Popo in Ruatoria? Yes, was quite a lot of drilling into that one, given that it was a project that was not a council project in the first instance, but have found all the submission to it, and the request is to put up lights or some kind of lighting at the Popo, and that funding for that will be submitted to the next plan, and then the work will proceed.
Is there a power source close by? Is there? Do you know? There is, yeah. It's not a problem.
Beg your pardon?
I was just wondering if there's a power source close by, because
yes,
that'll be where the expense is if you've got to run it.
There's a street light very nearby.
All right.
Noticed your email that evening where there was no budget for Waitaka Park currently, and there was nothing in the 10-year plan. given what's happening here at present. And we have, in the past, committed ourselves to that right several times. And I thought prior to Gareth's departure, they both were served.
Through the chair, council has not allocated funds towards redevelopment work at Puawaitanga Park through its long-term plan or previous long-term plans that I'm aware of. So we do have the township planning coming up for Ruatoria, and I think we'll see that the park will be central to that, but that's still some years away. If council does want to focus on lighting at Puawaitanga Park, it may be something to consider through this annual plan.
All right, thank you. If there's nothing further from the action sheet, we'll go on to page 14, which is the recommendation to council to approve the public conveniences plan. A few pages to deal with there. Moved by councillor Dowsing, second by councillor Fenn. I have had a question on the motorhome facilities, and it's not really the convenience plan, but the proposal to put a dump site down close to the industrial subdivision, which the caravanning organisation put funds toward, 20,000, I think, and we were going to do something with that. Is that progressing, do you know?
Through the chair, yes, I can give a reasonably comprehensive update on that. So there appears to have been some miscommunication subsequent to council's decision through the Freedom Camping Bylaw. Council's decision and deliberations through the Freedom Camping Bylaw around that particular dump station item was that council would provide the land and council would provide the connection to the sewer. The National Motor Caravan Association has developed a design, has gone through the consenting, well, is going through the consenting process around that design. The estimate for the project is around $150,000 to do it. And there seems to be some sort of perception that council is funding that. That was never council's decision to do it. So I've had a discussion with the National Motor Caravan Association representative in the last week, and I think we've cleared that whole issue up. So the Motor Caravan Association is going to apply to the Tourism Infrastructure Fund, or for this project will actually be achieved.
So where does the bulk of that expense lie? Is it kind of the roading element getting like laying, because it's just a grass plot at the moment. If we're paying for the connection, where's that expense come from, do you think?
I think the majority of the expense is actually in the hard surfacing work that's done with it. So it's actually a reasonably significant sized facility, and there has also been talk around some user fees recovery. So to use the dump station, there could be a user fee charged for it. That was an initiative from the Motor Caravan Association, which seems reasonable, but there'll be some cost of putting that that facility in place.
Well, hopefully it could be quite a good match for the fund. Yeah.
Oh, look, I think it's got a good fit with the Tourism Infrastructure Fund. If the Motor Caravan Association has the seed funding to enable that application to happen, then actually it makes good sense for the Tourism Infrastructure Fund. And with our support, I think there's a good chance they'll be successful.
Part of the dump station, is there a water supply there available for them to load up with water if they need?
It's principally for a dump station, but you'll usually have rinse-off facilities and so forth for a dump station as well.
Yeah, it would be close by on that road. Okay, the counts on the toilets, I mean, a lot of our assessment that we've sort of, probably over a year now, we've been trying to sort out whether to do counts and whether we can, but seems to be nothing happening in that space. What's the problem there, getting counts done?
Through the chair, I think the adoption of this final public conveniences plan has effectively committed us to that now. So now that there is a clear direction that council is committed to, then I suspect implementation will follow and how we roll out the final part of this public conveniences plan.
No, I'm talking about counting at the conveniences we were going to, yeah. So, but has it been costed? I mean, it's always TBC. I've got no idea if it's a costing.
But in terms of process, it would be, so the adoption of this plan has effectively committed the council to it now. So there's a wider strategy at place and how we roll out the implementation of that. I'm sure we will go away and come back with a program of how we plan to implement the public conveniences plan.
Okay. Councillor Dowsing.
Thank you, and thank you for a thorough report. As you can probably imagine, it was riveting reading. But the thing I wanted to question was is when we're discussing level of service at each site, is there going to be consideration for things like dishwashing at sites like the marina here, where we know that people's waste is currently, or that they're washing their dishes into the river essentially? Is that going to be looked at as a level of service that we may provide in some areas, or is that outside of the scope?
There may be multiple responses to that question, but in the first instance, some of the feedback that we got around cultural appropriateness as well around the use of public conveniences and washing dishes is something that would need to be considered in the first instance, but there may be a second answer in terms of operations to that question as well.
So from my point of view, I am absolutely for the problem being solved. We generate the problem by generating the camping in that area. So if we're not providing the service to solve that problem, which we know we're causing, then we're not providing the right public conveniences there. So we either would have to stop the action, which is the camping, or provide the infrastructure for it. Anything in between, and we're just allowing it to perpetuate. So my opinion is that it should include that, if that helps with your discussions around that. Thank you.
Yeah, I was a little bit sort of confused about the whole water element of it. We've got one conversation saying we don't want it there, or iwi in particular don't want it there, which is fair enough. But then we're saying that it's also going to be part of some conveniences. So we've got to decide how we're going to decide whether it's in or out. As far as dishwashing go, I mean, self-contained should mean that they have self-contained for dishwashing as well in their motorhomes, and most of them have. So whether we, by putting the dishwashing aspect to it, they're actually allowing people that aren't fully self-contained. So there's that discussion as well, that aspect of it. Most good motorhomes will have dishwashing facilities in their motorhomes. They should. Yeah. So I mean, we've had an indication in the report that an average cost of the facility is 89,000, but then that's not with any of the add-ons. So we kind of need to really get some strategy of what add-ons are acceptable when we're talking about parenting facilities and drinking water and even showers, so we kind of have to have some strategy of, if we're sort of sitting there looking at a number of 89,000, it's probably going to be well short on most of the facilities that we do want to put in, because we're looking at other add-ons to these facilities which aren't included in the price.
I think, I think Councillor Dowsing raises a really good point, because there's a philosophy of, are we providing for lawful freedom camping, or are we providing for those people who are unlawfully freedom camping and not being in self-contained units? That's a philosophical question for council. If we go down that track of providing those facilities, are we actually supporting freedom camping other than its intention through the law?
A classic example of the freedom camping is, say you've got a place like Kaiawa, which over the winter period and everything like that is actually quite quiet. There's not many people there at all, but over this particular summer period, it's been totally inundated. And from this season that's just happened, like the switch is on, we've had more people coming to this region, freedom camping, summer camping, than we've ever had before. And I believe we're not really, our facilities aren't handling the pressure that's been put on them. And for instance, like Kaiawa, I've had quite a few different complaints about the toilet facilities there, not just coping at all. It's been totally uninviting because of its overuse, even though our staff and recreation services have been doing a fantastic job in getting it done, and each day. But it's just getting totally clogged and and a mess in between. So how do we handle that kind of pressure, and what kind of facility for the future will we be looking at to try and appease that kind of situation? I mean, the whole freedom camping thing, it comes back to the suppliers as well of the freedom camping, with the bands, having a surcharge on their loos if they're being used. They charge the people with the lid being removed. So as a council, can we rally to all the other councils and government to make sure that at source, the people that are hiring out the freedom campers, encouraging their patrons to use their toilets, not discouraging them by charging fees? Because, the freedom camping site at Clyde Beach, I see it, it's working pretty well, and the toilets there are well used. There's people queuing up, but there are instances where people are walking across the road, which is, and some spoil it for others, unfortunately, by not using the facilities. But it's a hard one to manage, and particularly because the patrons who hire these vans aren't encouraged to use the facilities that they are provided, or they get charged if they do. So it's a bit of a strange situation.
It's not just freedom camping that we're talking about here, it's summer camping as well, and the proximity of the toilet facilities we provide to some of our summer camping sites. And they're actually provided for day visitors to those places, and but they are used by some of the people who are using our summer camping sites. So there definitely is. There definitely is a important question there. And there is a lot of work being done nationally around freedom camping and how it's managed, moving the terminology to responsible camping, putting more responsibility on the people who are camping, and also looking at those user charges as well. So government implementing its own surcharge system that could hopefully be returned to the locations where this is happening. If council is going to go down the track of providing larger toilet public convenience facilities for freedom campers and summer campers, then actually there's a capital cost with that. The council probably quite a significant capital cost, but possibly more concerningly, because you can source some of your capital costs through the Tourism Infrastructure Fund, possibly other funds. More concerningly, there's a direct hit on the ratepayer through operating those improved facilities as well. And at this point, that is only the ratepayer who will be paying for that.
Councillor Dowson?
So, I was going to bring that up as well. The confusion between our summer camping and freedom camping is really quite predominant as well, isn't it? I mean, we've got summer camping areas who pay for the facilities, and they pay a permit to use for the rubbish and to use the toilet facilities. And then the freedom campers come along and just use it for free when the person next door has actually paid a fee. So there's some anomalies and some pretty unhappy people watching and seeing all this pan out. The summer camping regime we've got is unique to our region, isn't it? I believe it's not. There's not many other regions that have summer camping like we do, with permits. And
certainly one of those things that happens that turns the eye when people come to Tairāwhiti. It makes Tairāwhiti look like there is a strong community element around camping. It's actually, I think it's a really good look for people coming to the district. But you're right that we do get some non-compliance around our freedom camping and summer camping, and we, through our monitoring and enforcement team and our regulatory services, actually do manage that as best they can.
Right. So you mean the monitors that are going around, they're moving freedom campers on if they're in summer camping areas, or if they've stayed more than 3 days, and they're kind of monitoring who's a freedom camper and who's a permit holder, because I believe that the freedom campers aren't being addressed. But they're going around asking the permit holders who they know for permits to make sure they're staying longer, but the freedom campers are kind of being left as as a, just to do what they like.
There is a report coming to the Environment Committee in respect to Freedom and Summer Camping Review for the last year, and I think that's probably the right place to have an in-depth discussion around how effective the monitoring and enforcement has been.
Thank you. We did come around eventually to a similar point, but it's around about the user pays aspect of it and the fact that it's not necessarily the Freedom campers who are paying for our facilities, but when we talk about those facilities, as in the public toilets at the marina here, and to get back onto the discussion about washing dishes, as Councillor Cranston said, they're meant to be self-contained and they shouldn't essentially need toilets, let alone the conveniences. But my purpose for that infrastructure is to ensure that the social values are kept up as well, because we have a lot of sports users using the ramps where that food waste may go, where make sure the cultural values are kept up, and the environmental values as well. So whilst we do look at it from whilst we concern ourselves a lot with the cost to council and the cost to the ratepayer, the real thing I want to continue to push through that, through consideration of those facilities, is are we maintaining the values that we want in those areas? And it's the users of that area who are ratepayers that see the downturn in those values from those from the bad behaviour of others, and if we can stem that bad behaviour through a small investment in infrastructure, then it's likely to be very worth it. But as you said, as the paper says, we've got, you've got that plan in place now to scope and look at the wider network and make sure that we are aligned with what we believe is the best facilities that we can have. So I look forward to progressing it further down the line.
I wonder if we're actually making some inroads on the consultation. We only got 10% was quality submissions on quality, and I think in the past that's been a real issue for us. The quality of toilets. So maybe we are making inroads in that, and I think probably Recreation Services have got a lot to be thankful for there. Except then I go up a little bit and I see there was 14 formal submissions. So. Sorry, was Councillor Finn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to ask, when we're talking about quality, I'm actually looking at plan on page 34, and this is all about design guidelines and consistency, and also talks about to investigate options for partnerships and public conveniences. What I'd like to say is, this talks about issues and opportunities. If we're looking at consistency of design, I'm just wondering, are we going to be looking at consistency around, say, like navigations and themes around navigations with these toilets, if we're designing them and stuff like that?
For this purpose, no. So navigations is obviously underway prior to the development of our design guidelines. So it's, but yes, consistency in terms of the design guidelines and some of the outcomes and behaviours you're trying to achieve through good design methods, that's really the outcome we're looking for.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, Councillor Biddy.
Good report, and there's obviously a lot of work on it. We sign off on it. In the past we have struggled. This council has really struggled with the maintenance. The further you go afield, the tougher the task becomes. When I look at the request from the submitters for public toilets, Titirangi, all public parks, high public space use, central business district, I mean, in terms of the overall requirement, what we need and what we can actually afford, where we go and make decisions going forward as further developments arise, this is a huge ask.
We're talking about huge asks. The unscheduled costs 188,000 a year. Is that going up or down, and how do we handle that through the budget? It's a very significant number.
Actually, overall, council spends close to $1 million on maintaining its public convenience network of 70-something public toilets around the district, which is no small annual investment. And Councillor Burdett is right. If you go with what people are asking for, you quickly put that over $1 million in terms of looking after these facilities. We still get complaints about the cleanliness of toilets. Some of them are due to if the cleaner goes in and cleans the toilet and then 5 minutes after somebody goes in and makes a mess of it, that's going to upset the next person who goes in, and we're likely to get a complaint about that. 188,000 for unscheduled work, a lot of it, that is for that sort of thing, and that's the reality of providing public convenience. The more we provide, the more likely it is that we will have an unscheduled call out.
Yeah, just I'm going to be a bit of a broken record here. Page 1, on page 38, you'll see a summary of our population, and ironically, we've got 47,900 in 2018 and projecting to 48,600 in 2023. Well, actually, we're at 49,100 already in 2019. And so I would just throw out all these projections until we get some new statistics that actually tell what is really happening in this region. We're pumping. We've got so many people wanting to come here. We haven't got enough houses for them. So, you know, when I read all these things for the future, I'm really scared that we are just ambling along thinking that we're going to have a minimum population growth when in fact we're not. It's actually pumping out there, and these figures are just so out. It's not funny. I think just a comment.
Yep. Okay. All right. If there's nothing further, we've got recommendation on page 14, I think. 14, I think. Moved by Councillor Burdett. Seconded by Councillor Dowse. Oh, is it? Okay. I've got that over. Second. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. 57, is it? No. Township planning. What page are we? Oh, this is stupid, this thing. Right, township planning update, sorry. Just a report for noted. Kate?
Yeah, so the long-awaited update, as you're aware, we were awaiting the appointment of a particular staff member to get moving on these actions. So I'm really pleased to be able to give you an update, a program. Things are tracking reasonably well with community members. I'm sure you've all got your ear to the ground and hearing some things that are happening in these spaces. So just happy to be moving on this space, and for your noting, that's the program.
What are the Mantuki procurement delays? Are they getting on top of that, or? Yeah.
So we have actually just released a request for proposal for procurement for the Te Arai domain works. So that's a large component of the township plan implementation. And we're also working with T Roads in terms of scheduling the roading works into their ongoing maintenance program, and similarly with the state highway component. So it's happening now. We're just in the process of procurement now.
Okay. Councillor Burdett.
If I may, can I suggest to staff that we need to put a little bit more time into some of those communities. I mean, I bought the Ruatoria community plan with me this morning, but it went down the road with my car. So, and it's almost 11 years old. So what I am suggesting that we, or our staff, we need to go back to those communities, update those plans and make sure that we're fully conversant with the requirements of those communities. After all, we have allocated an extra 100,000 to do this per community. And it's just a matter of time and planning in terms of when we can actually action that. Is that out of line?
More than 100,000.
Through the chair, as much as I would like to action that this year, we're following the program determined through the LTP. So the plan review is programmed for 2020 next year with the Ruatoria community.
Because, through you, Mr. Chairman, in response to Keita, I was present at the reactivating the Tokomoro Bay plan, 2 meetings. I went to the one in Tiki, and the outcome is very good. You've only got to look at the result in Tokomoro Bay to see how successful that reviewing of the plan and putting other stuff in place. So that's where I'm coming from here.
Yeah, just a bit of patience required because it's on a scheduled. Yeah. Councillor Dowsing, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask, it does mention delays in here, and I was concerned we did already push out timeframes for these projects to be delivered over 2 years, whereas previously they were to be delivered over 1. Is this tracking to be delayed outside longer than that 2-year period, or 2 years?
Previously advised there was the delay with Manukake Muriwai that should have been delivered in the previous financial year, so actively catching up, but as per the LTP, so there's been a double load of work to try and catch up so that we're in sync with the anticipated program of the LTP. So
Okay, yeah.
Manukake has been the delay, so we're like we see months going out. So once we catch up, everything else has been moving as per the plan.
Thank you. And yeah, and as Councillor Cranston said, and I support, obviously we need to stick with the schedule. Each councillor will be getting so stick, and then we won't have a 5-year-old consultation document that hasn't been delivered yet, or however old it is. Thank you.
Okay, nothing further. Just a noting report. So I move Councillor Burdett, second Councillor Foster. Nothing further. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right. Have a bit of a report on, because are they keep on top of things?
Yeah, so there was a column from Sarah Dixon in the newspaper the other day about the pool redevelopment and also support for ongoing maintenance for the pool complex. And we do have a small amount of renewal budget for the pool, which is being allocated this year. There's some key issues around complaints about the floor surfaces in the dressing rooms, which we're going to deal with this year, and other issues around ageing infrastructure, which we have been talking about for quite some time now. So we do carry some risk with the pool around some of the infrastructure we have there, but the urgent stuff that we're getting back from the community around the dressing rooms, we're going to deal with this year. But fair to say, we do have a really aged asset there, and it is in decline, and actually those maintenance costs are going to increase over time until we can actually complete the redevelopment if it happens.
Councillor Burdett?
Yeah, I think those of us who have been around the table long enough realise how expensive it's become, but I mean, it's a wonderful city asset. And for me, we should be upgrading it all the time where we can. I mean, we've spent a lot of money there. Going forward, the replacement is a big question mark, where we're going to get the funds from. I just think we need to ensure that for the city anyway, because I know there are a number of groups come every Thursday to town here, use the pool and the training pool, and they speak very highly of that opportunity. So from where I sit here, it's our responsibility to ensure that we maintain it to the highest standard that we can, and not drag the chain on any maintenance.
Now, can I just say that we actually have been doing quite a bit of work as money has been available. So we've resurfaced and resealed the 33-metre pool in the last last 18 months. So those things that come up, we are actually dealing with. I think the risk that we have is that there may be some surprises that pop out over the next few years that we don't expect as a result of ageing infrastructure. We can put the best asset management around it, but you know, there's some quite valuable, we're talking about a $20+ million redevelopment of that facility. When you're talking those sorts of numbers, you've got to accept that you have some very valuable infrastructure there that is getting very old. And so, you know, some of those replacement costs may actually be reasonably significant.
Page 69, we've got Waikanae and Midway Improvement Project. I'm not that familiar with what's going on down there. What's the Waikanae and Midway Improvement Project? I'm not sure what's needed down there. That yeah.
I'll speak to that. So that was a carry forward into the current financial year. There was a, whether you call it a sort of a conceptual outcome design bit of work that was done for that. And so it's from the end of the Onaroa walkway eastwards, so in front of the surf club, and to the just past the tennis courts there, to try and bring it into the same sort of standard of provision as we see heading down towards Midway. And a budget was set aside in last year's annual plan to do some work on that. Part of that was around access to the beach, dealing with the surf club's concerns around the Norfolk pines, which we've already dealt with. So the surf club wanted those pines removed. Council decided that it wouldn't. And other improvements along that to bring it up to the same sort of standard as the rest of the walkway. There's actually more work to do on the design around that. We're actually not ready to do it at this point, so I think it's possibly quite likely that we will be looking to carry that over to next financial year. It's probably the only project, I think, in the livable spaces capital program, which is actually an upgrade of a facility. The rest of our capital works is actually just maintaining levels of service, so keeping things ticking over. So it's a little bit of an anomaly in terms of the approach that we're taking across our other assets.
so there's no indication of what that might cost. Is it a big job or a little job?
So I think we've got a budget of $180,000 for that work, but the actual specifics in the scope we don't know at this point. So we'd be working to work within that $180,000.
Okay. On page 71, we talk about wharfs and jetties. Have we got anything in plan? We've had a couple of our visits just down Marina and that, and over the other side, Anzac Park, we've had presentations on the mudding of those points. Have we got any sort of plan about how we're going to maintain that going forward?
That's a capital item, capital project. So the wharfs and jetties is a capital renewal project. We've got 2 pontoons that had reached the end of their life. There's the one at the Inner Harbour, which has reached the end of its life, and we would like to replace this one at Marina, which we pulled out last year or the year before, which we'd like to replace as well. So this budget is focused on those 2. It's insufficient to do either of them. In terms of the mudding issue and the sedimentation around the boat ramps, we still have an ongoing maintenance program around cleaning the boat ramps. It's not sufficient for some people, but it's actually a fairly rigorous program. And in terms of clearing the rivers, that's not something that livable communities can actually deal with. It's a rivers question.
So is there anything happening on the Anzac Park one?
In terms of cleaning?
We had a visit over there and there was a real bone of contention that the mud that builds up on where they're putting in the walkers there. So have we got responsibilities or any intention to keep that clear of mud every one of maintenance basis?
I think historically, talking without facts here, but I think historically the users have cleared that, but I know that in recent times our contractors have cleared the mud off that boat ramp as well. But I know there were concerns about that mud is actually quite deep around the boat ramp. It's not just a boat ramp specific question.
Yeah.
Okay for council in terms of the grounds on the coast. I think over the last 2 to 3 years, they've done a great job. If you think about the issue with Tolaga, where it's been regrassed and the ground itself is in great order now. I go there quite regularly. Tokomara Bay, well, they've upgraded the grandstand. They've tidied up the internals of the changing rooms and put new pumps and water storage. And they've regrassed the area, plus put new seating around. You go north to Te Aroa, doing the drainage, and council paid for that. Doing all the drainage and the work that's been done there has provided a very good field. It's no longer a bog hole. And yeah, I think council need a bit of a pat on the back for the amount of work they've done on those coast grounds. Not that I'm peeing in your pocket, but...
But I am. Councillor Finn.
Yeah, thank you. I just actually have a question. It's on page 70, sports ground facility upgrades and renewals. Are we only responsible for the turf as council on these sports fields? Reason I ask is Central Football, the fence down there is absolutely shocking. It's got big holes in it. I want to know who's responsible for that fence. It's really shoddy, and I know that people have been going in while kids have been playing football and actually stealing things from inside, like phones and stuff like that. So who's responsible for fixing the fences?
Through you, the chair. I actually didn't hear that question. Sorry, Councillor Finn.
Who's responsible for fixing?
So council would be responsible, as I understand, for fencing of the sports fields.
Okay, because I brought up this subject 2 years ago, and it's a very simple little fix of fixing holes in these fences, especially for kids' gear and phones and stuff that they keep inside the building. I think it was actually in the paper about these phones being stolen, quite a few of them actually, about 2 years ago. And there's, it looks shocking, but actually for safety reasons and personal property of these young children. Can we put this on some action sheet to actually address that, please?
So through you, the chair, we'll put an RFS through to Recreation Services, but I'll report back to you in our next activities update.
Through the chair, I think there's a few questions around this. I think it's appropriate that we maintain our assets. Actually, fenced sports grounds are not that common around the country. So fenced sports grounds with barbed wire on them are not that common around the country. So I think there is a responsibility on the owner of the venue that is holding this equipment. I don't know, so the club or whoever around taking responsibility around the security of their equipment, because the fence is not going to keep everybody out, and actually barbed wire fences around sports grounds is not actually a particularly attractive thing to have in the community.
Certainly not.
Thank you. I'm not entirely sure if I'm talking about the same sports ground, but Childers Road Reserve is. I think the fence is fine there. I play there every week, but but we've had thefts as well. But it's totally up to us to lock our gear in the changing room, not to, on the days that we're there playing, we've got gates open. So why would a hole in the fence be the reason that people are getting in? But anyway, to not have that, to not debate whether that should be done. I was actually questioning whether this, in here you've got a mention to the Sports Turf Institute being engaged to undertake work specification. I thought that that our contractors had really good experience in sports turf coverage and what the grass makeup should be and all that kind of thing. I thought that they were implementing a strategy last year, and now we've got another agency.
Through you, the Chair. So there is some capital works program to happen at the Oval specifically. And while we've had some, I guess, fundamental responses around what good turf management looks like, we would do a tender process to understand the details specifically to those sports field upgrades. Through the tender process, it could be recreational services that also apply, but that's the process that we would go through to support that work.
Yeah, I just assumed it was within recreational services contract to maintain and use their experience to deliver high quality sports turf. So I didn't realise we'd have to engage another group to give us a recommendation. But if that's the process, then that's the process. That's fine. And the other one I was going to question. Let me try to get page change. I think most of it's been covered. Thank you.
Just page 71, Titirangi, just with the wooden structure, the crow's nest structure up on the hill. I read that it's going to be dismantled. It's got safety issues by sound things, and it's been there for a long time, obviously. My question is, how long is the gap going to be between that being removed and a new replacement? Because at the end, that is a very, very busy little playground, that, and the only area where children can recreate on the hill. And you know, it's very rarely you go past it with no one in there. There's always children all over it. So I would be quite concerned if there was a gap, a long gap between that being dismantled and a new play equipment being installed. And yeah, what kind of design what kind of a play equipment would you be looking at to replace the one in Titirangi?
So through you, the Chair again, we are looking to displace that playground equipment within the next month. The expectation around replacing it quite promptly is there, but we will be discussing this with Ngāti Onioni in our co-management meetings. We've already worked through some costings and the process of potentially fast-tracking a Titirangi playground replacement quite quickly. We have a budget available this year, so we hope to be able to allocate it to Titirangi as long as engagement and support is there.
At Te Puia, we've got a customer service centre, which is essentially an old house. It did need earthquake repair, which was quite significant. Why the hell are we paying almost $2,000 a week rent for that place? $101,000 a year rent. Now, I just don't get it. I spoke last week about the spatial planning, and the Herald picked up that I was advocating moving the customer service centre to Ruatoria. I was actually a lot wider than that. I was sort of advocating Ruatoria as a service centre general. If I had known we were going to be paying $101,000 a year rent for that place, I would have been pursuing that a lot stronger, because we could have built a service centre up there and really kicked off things happening at Ruatoria, rather than paying almost $2,000 a week rent for what is essentially an old house.
I'm not going to add to that.
Okay.
But if we, sorry, if we had been told
exactly
in advance that these were the kind of costs that we were expected to meet, I certainly would have pushed it. But I backed off because the staff didn't want to move and GHL were doing the repair work. However, when you see this, you spread that out over a number of years. It's a lot of money. So, and we have not only the land in Ruatoria, we own buildings there, we own quite a bit of property there. And I shouldn't be even talking because I'm a resident of Ruatoria. But hey, realistically, we should have been told about that.
Councillor Dowson.
Thank you. Yes, that was actually that was the piece that I had circled as well for my next question. And it seems like we're paying a great deal for a fairly low level of service there. So I'm not sure whether we can have more information back to another committee meeting about the state of that site and what whether it actually meets the current market rates for office space in the region, let alone in Te Puia, because it's it's fairly high.
Through the chair, I think I'd like to have a look at that in a bit more depth as well. So we'll come back to the next committee meeting with some comment on that. So happy for that to go on the action sheet.
Mr. Chairman, I better be fair. The Te Puia facility involves a pound, it involves a huge depot for the current contractors, Downers. Just if that rental covers the whole thing or just our building, I'm unsure. So those are some of the issues that we should really be looking at. But we do, and we did have the opportunity to shift earlier, and I got rubbished, well and truly rubbished, I might add.
Yeah. I guess to add to that, Bill, this is an increase in rent. So so regardless of whether it's the entire site or just the building, we've seen a 231% increase. So we were paying that much for whether it was the whole site or whether it was just the building before. We're paying, a fraction of the amount. So yeah, I'd appreciate it back on that. Thank you.
And the only, Councillor Foster.
Page 90, just with our website, we were number 1 in the country with our website, the development over the years, and now we've slipped to number 36. Over a 10-year period, we haven't kept up to the play with modern technology, obviously, and we don't have an attractive website like we used to. Our counterparts have upped their ante a lot more. Can we get a comment on how we're going to get back to number 1 again?
Through the chair, as previously noted in the action sheet, website development update, or redevelopment update will be coming to the next ComDev meeting for you. So that effectively is a reset of our website, and some further detail should be available for you then.
Chairman, page 72 at the bottom, relocating the public toilet at Hicks Bay. The current toilet that is there on education land was installed when John Clark was the mayor. Property, I'm just asking staff, the property that was purchased by Terry McMillan many years ago has since been upgraded because it's a very wet area. Is that where they intend, community have requested that the toilet and the playground go? We probably need to do some more work there too, I would think. But what I'm saying is, Mr. Chairman, when we go to the copper meeting up there, let's have some information we can tell these people and not have them ringing me and complaining about the lack of information coming out of council.
Through the chair, I suspect, and we're very familiar with that issue being raised by the Whare Kahika community. I suspect through the development of the township plans as well, it will be addressed in there.
Okay, nothing further. That's our first page on this. Yeah, move Councillor. Has it been moved and seconded? No. Moved by Councillor Dowsing, seconded by Councillor Burdett. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Nothing further? No one's got anything? All right, I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much. Oh, actually, yeah. See, it must have been. Check the email.